Good morning, all of you. That day we have discussed about we are doing the chapter globalization and Indian economy. Now that day we have discussed about the factors enabling globalization. What are the factors responsible for the globalization? That is remarkable changes in the technology, and after that liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment policies. Now we'll start our latest topic, today's topic, that is liberalization. Liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment policy. Before starting this, we will just discuss about that is Chinese toys, which we have discussed example of imports of Chinese toys in India. And you just imagine the situations when Indian government puts a tax on imports of toys. What would happen? Those who wish to import these toys would have to pay tax on this. And because of the tax, buyers will have to pay a higher price on imported toys. And due to this, Chinese toys will no longer be as cheap in the Indian markets, and imports from China will automatically reduce. And Indian toy makers will prosper. So, tax on import, what we will call it? That is called trade barriers. So, it is called a trade barrier because our government put some restriction set up. Government can use trade barriers. Like you can see that police put barriers and sometimes police remove that barriers. So same manner, governments can use trade barriers to increase or decrease foreign trade and to decide what kinds of goods and how much of each should come in the country. As we have discussed earlier, after independence, our government adopted the policy of LQP, license, quota, and permit. And that policy, that means our government had given protection to our producers because India got independence and industries were at the initial stage. And the purpose of the government was to protect the producers within the country from foreign competitions. Industries were just coming up in 1950s and 1960s, and the competition from imports at that stage would not have allowed these industries to come up. So India allowed imports of only essential items like machinery, fertilizers, petroleum, etc. And at the initial stage, all the developed countries have given protection to domestic producers through varieties of means. So our government also put trade barriers, but starting around 1991, our government, due to some far-reaching changes in the policy, and that was related with removal of trade barriers. So our government decided that the time had come for Indian producers, that the time had come for Indian producers to compete with producers around the globe. It felt that the competition, would improve the performance of producers within the country since they would have to improve their quality because now they have to compete with the international producers. And then Prime Minister, at that time the Prime Minister of Manmohan Singh, who is a great economist also, announced the new economic policies, removed the various types of barriers, and we have introduced new economic policy in 1991. And now this decision was supported by very powerful international organizations like World Trade Organization. So now barriers on foreign trade and foreign investment were removed to a large extent, and now LQP replaced by LPG, liberalization, that means removal of trade barriers. And due to this, private sector took initiative, and since more MNCs came to India, and now this was the beginning of globalization. So LQP replaced by LPG. So barriers on trade, foreign investment removed. Now goods could be imported and exported easily, and also foreign companies could set up factories and offices here. So removing barriers or restrictions set by the government is called liberalization. With liberalization of trade, businesses are allowed to make decisions freely about what they wish to import or export. The government imposes much less restriction than before, and is therefore it is called liberal. So this was liberalization policy, and our government introduced in 1990. So now we have just discussed about some powerful international organizations supported this policy, and we had given one name, World Trade Organization. Now we'll discuss about what is World Trade Organization. As it proves with the name, it is an international organization, world. But what is the aim? That is trade among countries. As liberalization of foreign trade and investment in India supported by very powerful international organization, and these organizations say, like WTO, that all barriers to foreign trade and investment are harmful. There should be no barriers. Trade between countries should be free. All countries in the world should liberalize their policies. WTO, that means World Trade Organization, is one such organization whose aim is to liberalize international trade, started at the initiative of the developed countries. It establishes rules regarding international trade and sees, the most important thing, it sees that these rules are obeyed. And now maximum countries of the world are having its members. Established on 1st January 1995. Its headquarters is in Geneva, Switzerland. Though World Trade Organization is supposed to allow free trade for all. But do you think it's really? In practice, it is seen that the developed countries have unfairly retained trade barriers. And trade barriers. And for this, we can discuss the case studies also. And that is debate on trade practices. If you will see in your book, you will find a case studies related with this WTO rules and regulations, developing countries and WTO. So now, in the chapter number 2 of economics, sectors of Indian economy, that in India, agriculture sector provides the bulk of employment, though it is comprised with seasonal and disguised unemployment, and a significant portion of the GDP in India. But compared to this, a developed country like USA, with a share of agriculture in GDP at 1%, and its share in total employment is only 0.5%. And yet, due to this small percentage of people who are engaged in agriculture in US, because it is a very tiny figure, 0.5%. So US government provides massive sums of money to the farmers for production and for exports to other countries. Due to this massive money, because they are getting, it is called not money, we can call it like subsidies. So due to these subsidies, they receive from government. Now US farmers can sell the farm products at abnormally low prices. The surplus farm products are sold in the other countries' market at low prices, adversely affecting farmers in these countries. Now, when Indian government adopted the new economic policies, we have removed all the trade barriers. We have stopped giving subsidies to our farmers. So due to this, developing countries and WTO, developing countries most of the times oppose the idea of free world economy and refuses to remove some barriers. It is because the main reason of this is industries in developing countries are not equally developed to compete with the large MNCs, and industries of developing countries who bear heavy tax burden will not be able to compete with the large producers of developed countries. So again, developing countries asking the developed country governments, we have reduced trade barriers as per World Trade Organization's rules. But you have ignored the rules of WTO and still continue to pay your farmers vast sums of money. You have asked our governments to stop supporting our farmers, but you are doing so yourself. So can we call this free and fair trade? No. Rules of WTO are not same for all the countries, and WTO rules exploit them because WTO is introduced by the developed countries. So they are taking advantage. And this is also we can call another form of exploitation. It is called economic exploitations. So now WTO, after that, we will discuss about impact of globalization in India. So impact of globalization, that means positive or negative impact. So when we are talking about this thing, that is positive or negative impact. As we know this thing that positive and negative impact. So when we are talking about first we will discuss about positive impact. Positive impact increased availability of quality products and services at competitive prices to the consumers. As we can easily understand, when we visit to the market, you will find cheap and quantity of the product. Lots of companies are there. So which we can observe for last 30 years, globalization of the Indian economy has come a long way. So greater competition and globalization among producers, local and foreign producers. The most important advantages to the consumers, we consumers, especially the well-off sections in the urban areas, because now there is a greater choice before the consumers. Now we are enjoying improved quality and lower prices for several products, and due to this we today enjoy much higher standards of living than was possible earlier. Increased productivity due to investment in new technologies. So here we can discuss that not only consumers but producers are also benefited. Producers and workers also benefited, but it is not uniform. Producers and workers, the impact of globalization not uniform, because whenever we are talking about the MNCs, now we can easily see MNCs have increased their investment in India over the past 30 years, which means investing in India has been beneficial for them, along with the local producers also, as we have discussed how MNCs control production across the countries. And when MNCs collaboration with local companies, local market, so local companies get more investment and latest technology. MNCs, but MNCs interested in industries like cell phones, automobiles, electronics, soft drinks, fast food, or services like banking in urban areas. But these products have a large number of well-off buyers. So due to this, in these industries and services, new jobs have been created. Also, local companies supplying raw materials, etc., to these industries have prospered. So now, today, we discussed positive impact